Hello again, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us for this Sunday's edition of Alaska Weather. I'm meteorologist Dave Percy, and I'll be hosting today's show. Up first, we've got a small stream flood advisory for small streams draining the eastern Alaska range here from Dot Lake to Tanacross in that area there, which is not quite as extensive as what I have drawn here. But there is a small stream flood advisory due to the heavy rains they've had along the north slopes of the Alaska range over the last anywhere from 12 to 24 hours. Last 12 hours, up to 1.5 inches of rain has fallen around Fort Greely, picked up about that much in some areas there. And so that's definitely caused the streams to rise, and in some cases spill over the bank. And that'll continue probably, well, tonight and at least into tomorrow. Otherwise, fire danger. Definitely none here along the Alaska range where all the rain is, but there is a small area of extreme fire danger up northeast of the Yukon River, kind of up the Porcupine River Valley there, and then a little bit larger area of high fire danger. Otherwise, pretty good around the state, but over here toward, looks like from about the Selawik Valley out toward the greater Kilbrook area, there's a pretty good zone of high fire danger, low high over in that area, and that'll probably persist until tomorrow, but there is some moisture trying to push in there, but just mainly clouds, not really looking for a lot of precipitation over in this area. On the satellite today, clouds dropping southward here. That's what brought all the rain and showers and in some cases thunderstorms there to the eastern Alaska range, with amounts back toward the west there around Denali, up to 1/2 inch falling during the day today. And that's streaming southward here into Prince William Sound, the clouds anyway, definitely not as heavy precipitation, but probably some scattered showers coming across the western part of the Copper River Basin. Showers developing here, and also probably thunderstorms as well up along the central eastern Brooks Range, clearing out along the north slope there in areas. And generally low clouds covering just about all of the Arctic coast, but not much in the way of any dense fog or fog at all being reported. And we've got this weakening system here pushing clouds into the Seward Peninsula up to the northwest coast. Not much precipitation, very light sprinkle type of rain going on from the Bering Strait, actually St. Lawrence Island on up to the northwest coast there. But that is the perfect setup for strong winds at Cape Lisburne. And earlier today they had southwest winds gust to 51 miles per hour there. Lighter elsewhere, but that is a wind-prone area in this type of a pattern. Otherwise, high pressure over the Bering Sea built in pretty strongly, so that's keeping this system to the south, although it is trying to push up north and increase the gradient a little bit along the Aleutians, and then any storminess out to the west trying to come in gets deflected up and over the top there, and that's exactly what we have going on here, is the main push there up along the northwest coast. Otherwise, dry, nothing going on in the Gulf of Alaska, dry over the Panhandle. Did have some lingering showers today over the central and southern areas, but amounts are quite light. You can see that dissipating as that area of clouds finally shifts off into the British Columbia area. On the chart today, again, scattered showers mainly early part of the day today across the central and southern southeast coast. Areas of clouds up to the north, again coming southward here with all the heavier precipitation up toward the Alaska Range area, back toward around Denali. And then lighter amounts, still up to 1/4 inch in some areas across the mid-Tanana Valley of the White Mountain areas. Then you get into the hot weather there over the upper Yukon Valley, temperatures in the 70s, lower 80s. Chalkyitzik had 81 degrees at 3 o'clock this afternoon. That was a warm spot in the state. Upper 70s around that area there. And then some showers developing along the Brooks Range will likely develop into some scattered thunderstorm activity probably toward this evening. Some clearing on the north slope, clearing back in the northwest Noatak Valley area down into the Ambler zone, and then thunderstorms along this trough kicked off this afternoon across the Kuskokwim Valley. Strong high pressure here, southeast Bering Sea, west of Bristol Bay. So dry day here for Kodiak Island and those areas. And again, that storminess being kept to the south mostly, although it is trying to press up. And so a little bit of an increase in the gradient here, so those winds will start to pick up a little bit. And that may drag some moisture northward here with, you can see starting to approach the central Aleutians, some very light precipitation. Main rain area back with the front there, but look for low clouds, fog, and drizzle to possibly develop and move onto the south shores of the Alaska Peninsula and the Fox Islands. Otherwise, widespread clouds, low clouds with patchy areas of fog over the Bering Sea. Thunderstorms diminish, but probably persist after midnight here over the interior. Also up there over the Brooks Range. And that weak front keeps a chance of moisture and gusty winds along the northwest or the western Arctic coast of those western capes there, with very light precipitation across the Noatak Valley, probably north of Kotzebue, Kivalina, on up the western Arctic coast. Otherwise, maybe an isolated shower around Yakutat, possibly. Dry for the Panhandle with mostly cloudy skies, less clouds over toward the border, and that trough keeping a chance of showers this evening in around Stewart and Hyder. Otherwise, it'll be pulling out, and tomorrow looks like it'll be partly to mostly sunny there. Extensive area of low clouds and fog along the coast. May last the entire day from Port Alexander on up to Sitka. Mostly sunny North Gulf Coast, Prince William Sound, into the Copper River Basin. Chance of afternoon thunderstorms, the Talkeetnas, possibly the Chugach Mountains, but more likely up along the eastern part of the Alaska Range there, and then up along the border, and also in the central and eastern Brooks Range. Otherwise sunny and dry and warm here over the interior, with again temperatures in the upper 60s to upper 70s, some cases into the lower to mid 80s over the interior valleys. High pressure holding along the southwest coast. That means low clouds and fog are probably holding along the coast there throughout the daytime, but definitely burning back toward the coast in the afternoon. Low clouds and fog possible around St. Lawrence Island into the Bering Strait, and that front does make a jog to the north tomorrow here, bringing some gusty winds and rain into the central Aleutian areas with lighter precipitation, drizzle type of IFR stuff here coming into the eastern Aleutians, and it should stay south of the Pribilofs. And then for the next day, that front does push northward. Pretty weak though, loses the gradient, so the wind's no problem at all. Light rain pushes the Alaska Peninsula, approaches the southwest coast, possibly making Cape Newenham by late afternoon. Definitely will be a wet day for the Pribilofs with clouds. Not too bad breezes, maybe 15 to 20 miles per hour. Otherwise, showers, low clouds, fog, following the front end behind the Aleutians here, generally southerly winds. And that tends to increase, at least the precipitation, out toward that low center near Shimia. And then the Arctic coast here is still prone to these waves coming over the top of this region, which pushes all the way into the Russian Far East there. So the interior will be mostly sunny with another warm day. Temperatures again 70s to lower to mid 80s here over the interior areas. Sunshine right down to the North Gulf Coast, Prince William Sound, Kodiak Island, mostly sunny and warm, and the Panhandle, mostly sunny, optimistically, with chance of thunderstorms over toward the border areas there, and also up here with this trough over the extreme northeast part of the Brooks Range, possibly the eastern north slope, south of Kaktovik and Barter Island. Looking at tonight's low temperatures for Monday morning. Upper 50s there in the upper Yukon Valley, lower to mid 50s central interior, cooling back to the mid 30s, lower to mid 30s eastern central Arctic coast with lower 50s, upper 40s, lower 50s along the southwest Yukon-Kuskokwim Delta to Bristol Bay. Lower to mid 40s for the Aleutians and Bering Sea with mid 50s for the Sitna-Matanuska Valley, maybe the Kenai Peninsula and Anchorage. Upper 40s to near 50 for the Panhandle. Highs tomorrow back into the 70s all the way down toward Bethel and into the mid to upper 70s here over the interior. Again, some areas reaching the lower 80s again over the upper Yukon Valley. Into the mid 70s Copper River Basin, 75 to 80 or so for the Matanuska-Susitna Valley, and well into the 60s, maybe pushing towards 70 for the Panhandle. Lows the next morning, lower 50s there. About the same here over interior Alaska. Highs back into the 70s all the way down to the southwest coast, Bristol Bay, northeast 75 to 80 again over the upper Yukon Valley.
And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
A lot of VFR tomorrow morning here over the, well, from the western interior all the way over to the Yukon, marginal VFR, Yakutat, on down across the southeast coast, and IFR, Nunivak Island up to St. Lawrence Island, but north of the Pribilofs, south coast of the Seward Peninsula through the Bering Strait up along the northwest coast, and just off the western Arctic coast there and grazing the east side. For the afternoon, we've got marginal VFR here, Cape Yakataga, down along the southeast coast, VFR over the inland areas, even Prince of Wales Island, and good VFR in the interior, a lot of sunshine, some thunderstorms breaking out here, especially up here along the Brooks Range. IFR, central western Arctic coast, and from the Seward Peninsula across St. Lawrence Island to St. Matthew to near Nunivak, and the Pribilofs, marginal IFR, southwest Bering, central and western Aleutians. Looks like VFR taking over the Alaska Peninsula and Kodiak Island. And for the Tuesday morning forecast, central western Arctic coast in the IFR, marginal VFR off to the east, VFR Kotzebue Sound and the Chukchi Sea, as well as the northern Seward Peninsula, and for Norton Bay over to Nome and possibly Wales there, or Teller, we've got marginal VFR, and the IFR now just south of St. Lawrence Island, and lots of IFR here covering the central and southern Bering Sea, as well as all of the Aleutians right up to the Alaska Peninsula. And again, VFR, Bristol Bay, Kodiak Island, northward. And for the afternoon forecast, again, massive IFR out here over the Bering Sea and the Aleutians. On Alaska may become marginal there on Alaska Island, and the Alaska Peninsula, marginal VFR, but the south side socked in with the IFR. Marginal VFR up to Sitkinak Island, otherwise Kodiak staying VFR throughout the day. Gulf of Alaska really good, some thunderstorms possible in the Panhandle, otherwise VFR, good VFR over just about all of interior Alaska northward to the North Slope. And Anaktuvuk tomorrow, VFR, isolated thunderstorms possible, and Adigan, same forecast as well, with any showers, thunderstorms will be of the VFR variety, and for Lake Clark and Merrill, VFR, as well as rainy, looking perfect. Windy VFR with chance of thunderstorms. Isabel, that forecast good as well. Risk of some afternoon thunderstorms there. And VFR from Antasta, as well as Tanita looks VFR, risk of a thunderstorm. Just a risk, maybe on the north side there of the pass. And then for Portage, good VFR. Chilkoot and White, marginal VFR becoming VFR in the morning. And thunderstorm possibilities here on those northern entrances. For freezing levels, 8,000 feet southeast coast through the interior all the way up to the eastern Beaufort Sea coast, Kaktovik, 8,000 feet there with the surface hugging the coastline, 10,000 feet over the Yukon Kuskokwim Delta, eastern Bering down across the Aleutians. Icing looking like this with that front bringing the moisture into the Aleutians, spreading eastward to about Nikolsky. Got some isolated moderate, very isolated moderate, comes a little more widespread way out there to the west towards Shimia, and then some icing possibilities up here along the central western Arctic coast, and possibly into the Brooks Range there, the mixed variety with those developing showers and thunderstorms. Otherwise, pretty good here everywhere else, basically icing free. And moving on to the jet stream, we've got upper level ridging here, continues to hold centered along the southwest coast, but ridging northward and northeastward. It's really dominating just about all of Alaska here, with the southwest jet associated with this upper level trough coming across, just clipping the Bering Strait, 80 knots southwesterlies coming up hitting the northwest coast there, and then the Pacific jet well to the south. 9,000 feet showing high pressure here in northern Bristol Bay, west-southwest 15 to 20 into the interior. Stronger winds southeast 25 to 30, 35 knots there over the Aleutians. Light northwesterlies, Gulf of Alaska and the southeast coast, 3,000 feet. Same pattern, 5 to 10 knots out of the northwest for the Panhandle. Light in the Gulf of Alaska, light under the high center, westerlies 15 to 25, and a narrow band through the interior. And the stronger winds out there over the Aleutians and southern Bering. Turbulence-wise, occasional moderate chop from the Bering Strait area, northwest or western Arctic coast. Moderate chop areas of the Aleutians. And after the break, I'll be back with a look at the marine forecasts.
Welcome to another edition of Alaska Weather Facts. I'm meteorologist Dave Snider, and joining us once again is our good friend Eric Stevens from GINA, the Geographic Information Network of Alaska. He is here and has been here many times to talk to us about weather satellites and how those can help Alaskans understand our weather, how we can do better detection, keep more people safe from things even like volcanic ash. But today, Eric, you're going to talk to us a little bit more about weather satellites and how that can keep Alaskans safe and protect our property from wildfire, right?
That's right, Dave. Today's topic is where there's smoke, there's fire. And thanks for having us back again to Alaska
Anytime.
Weather. Well, weather satellites have a lot of different instruments on them. It turns out that the electromagnetic spectrum has a lot going on in it, and only one part of that is visible light, what we see.
Right.
Weather satellites, of course, report that. Today's topic is wildfires.
Okay.
There are some people who say that in Alaska in the summertime, you don't have severe weather. These people are usually from Oklahoma or somewhere. And F5 tornadoes tend not to occur in Alaska.
Right.
People have also said what we do have in the summer. What is Alaska's severe summer weather can be hydrology,
Right.
flash flood and erosion in the mountains and things like that, and fires, wildfires.
Absolutely.
Those were here in 2004, certainly remember that. We've got an example here from 2014. Now, it was a quiet season overall, but in May, down on the Kenai Peninsula, we had a wildfire on the Funny River, and this is a satellite image from a polar orbiter that went right over Alaska, and we can see the plume of smoke coming out of that fire on the Kenai, curling down. It's caught in the wind.
Right.
It goes down toward Kodiak Island, curves around. You can see it circulating around a low pressure system that's in the Gulf of Alaska.
It was a beautiful picture.
Oh my gosh.
Except there was a fire.
There's a fire there. The nice thing is with this satellite image, you can tell where the fire origin is, where the
Right.
smoke is coming from. And it's a color image. We're looking at the wavelength spectrum of about 0.4 to 0.7 micrometers or microns. That's what the human eye would see. If you were riding on the satellite and looked down, you could see this kind of an image.
Right.
So that's pretty nice. But it turns out there's more to the electromagnetic spectrum than just visible light.
Okay.
You've heard of infrared, ultraviolet, that kind of thing. If we move into longer wavelengths, let's go to one specifically, 3.7 micron.
Okay, 3.7.
Why worry about that one? Well, we've got an example here. 3.7, it turns out, happens to be very sensitive to a certain temperature range, temperatures where fires burn.
Okay.
And so we've got an example zoomed in a little more from that same Funny River fire down on the Kenai Peninsula, and we can see that you get up into a few hundred degrees Fahrenheit,
Right.
and that's where the colors are. We can see there on the Funny River fire to the west and to the east, almost a horseshoe shape there, is not only we're seeing where the fire is in a general sense, but specifically where it's the active fire
That is where
front.
it's burning right now.
And it's
Amazing.
3.7 microns is the important temperature there.
Okay.
That's right.
So this is really important to firefighters on the ground, people that are making plans and directing the firefighters on where they need to go and cut the trenches and keep people safe.
You know it. If you want to fight that fire, you got to know where it is.
Okay.
You got to know the leading edge. We've also got a movie loop, nothing quite like animating it in time.
Yeah.
You can see the fire spreading out over time with a succession of film or succession of images. Now, this is one channel, 3.7 micron. You know, we looked at that color smoke image before.
Right.
And that's actually a red, a green, and a blue. That's how you get color imagery. What if you took 3 different wavelengths in the infrared? You went from like 2.2 micron, 1.5 micron, up to 3.7. You mix them together, you get this other kind of color image, which is even a better way to sharply bring out the details of where that leading edge of the fire is.
Okay.
You'll note, though, in the infrared, guess what? We don't see the smoke. That's too bad. And on these movie loops, you can see the clouds go by. These channels can't see through clouds. The lesson is there's no one perfect solution. You got to have the visible, got to have some of that infrared single 3.7 channel, some of the infrared mixing to help get a different perspective. Another one, we've talked before about a fun channel called the day-night band.
Yes, one of my favorites.
Oh yeah, and in Alaska in the winter, it's great. We got all this darkness. The day-night band is so sensitive to seeing light. You can see features that otherwise aren't available. Now in Alaska, when you have a forest fire, it tends to be light out all the time.
Right.
It's our summer. But we can go down south to the Rim Fire in California in 2013. Now, okay, it was in California, not Alaska, but Alaskan crews went down to fight that fire, so we can talk about it here on Alaska Weather. Here we have a 3.7 micron channel shot of the rim fire, again, kind of a horseshoe shape, showing that active fire front down there. And then we'll look again to the day-night band the visible light, and then you can see how the fire is all bright. You can see the active fire front and actually the city lights over there too. Turns out that the cities, while they're active in a social sense, are not really hot in a fire sense. So they don't show up in the 3.7 micron. They're not hot like a fire is, but the fire in the cities look the same from a visible light perspective. And a fun thing here too is that we can see the smoke plume going north from the rimfire on the day-night band. So if we were ever to have, like in 2004 in Alaska, you get dark at night, we still had an active fire season that year.
Right.
That was, you know, that really bad year. The day-night band didn't exist then, but if we had fires now in August, we could use it then. The lesson here is weather satellites, they offer many different wavelengths of light. Some are used for different purposes, and some of these we just looked at tonight are especially helpful here in Alaska to find and to track the behavior of these wildfires so the crews can go out there and do their jobs.
Sure, sure. So a satellite toolbox for the firefighting crews and the fire weather forecasters, and it just underlines how important satellites are, especially for Alaska and our mission for the National Weather Service to protect life and property, and also to enhance the national economy. So wonderful stuff there, Eric. And people can look at pictures like this anytime by going to gina.alaska.edu. You'll find images there all around Alaska at various times of the year, and not just about fire weather, but volcanic ash and smoke and anything else you want to check out. They're always beautiful pictures and always interesting to look at no matter what time of the day. Thanks again for joining us, Eric. We appreciate it and welcome you back anytime. For this edition of Alaska Weather Facts, I'm meteorologist Dave Snider. See you next time.
And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Welcome back. Today's sea ice analysis, not a lot different from yesterday. This ice up through here, slowly advancing southwestward, and that going against the southerly current out here over the southern Chukchi Sea. And not a lot of change expected over the next 5 or 6 days, just a continued slow thaw. And for the coastal water forecast here, northwest 20 on the south coast, west-northwest 10 to 15 north side, and Lynn Canal south 15, swinging around to the north at 15 for Stevens Passage, northwest 15 for Clarence Strait with 3-foot seas. Outlook for Tuesday, hold the northwesterly winds at 20 knots here on the south coast, northwest 15 up north, and seas running 4 to as high as 6 feet. And for the inside waters, Stevens Passage all the way up to Lynn Canal, Glacier Bay, north 15, northwest 15 for Clarence Strait with 3-foot seas. For the North Gulf Coast, west-southwest breeze at 10 knots with 3-foot seas. Not much different in Prince William Sound, west at 10, seas at about 2 feet. Cook Inlet, same forecast, west winds 10 knots, 2-foot seas. Kamishak Bay, 20 knots out of the west with 5-foot seas, and then the Barrens 15 knots. Outlook for Tuesday, south to southwesterlies for the inlet here at 10, staying light, 2 to 3-foot seas, southwest 15 for Kamishak Bay. Small craft advisories, though, for the Barren Islands. Westerlies expected to kick up, sustained at 25 knots, coming down to about 20 knots here for the western North Gulf Coast, then back into the light wind pattern here for the east side and Prince William Sound, west winds 10 knots with 2-foot seas. Kodiak Island on the east side here, variable to east at about 10, and then southwest 15 for the Shelikof Strait zone. Sitkinak to Castle Cape, light southwesterlies, and then Castle Cape to Cape Sarachev. Those will increase tomorrow to 20 knots out of the east on the Pacific side, north side, northeast coming up to 20 knots, light westerlies for Bristol Bay. Those will become southeast at about 20 knots for Tuesday there for the Bristol Bay zone. Small craft advisories here for Shelikof Strait, southwest 25, seas up to 7 feet, just 20 knots here on the east side of Kodiak Island, Sitkinak to all the way down to Castle Cape. And then small craft advisories here for the Alaska Peninsula, southeast 25 to 30 knots with seas 5 to 8 feet. Out over the Aleutians, a pretty uniform wind speed and mostly direction here. We've got easterlies mostly at 30 knots from the Unalaska Island all the way out to about Amchitka. Then they turn northeast at 30 with seas 11 to 12 feet there for the western zone. Seas running 8 to 11 feet on the Pacific side here and about 5 to 8 on the Bering Sea side. And for the outlook on Tuesday, Unalaska Island south 25 to 30 knots, lighter over toward Nikolsky. Then back up to about 20 knots here for the central Aleutians, still out of the south of that low center back southwest of Shimia there. So I'll give them east winds at 20 knots, southerlies at 20 here Amchitka to Adak. And for the southwest coast, light westerlies into Kuskokwim Bay at 10 knots, 2-foot seas, but east, becoming east, picking up to about 20 knots for the Pribilof, south 15, St. Matthew Island, and southwest 20 for St. Lawrence Island. And then for Tuesday, light southwest winds 10 to 15, St. Lawrence Island into Norton Sound, 2 to 3-foot seas. And small craft advisories here, south of Nunivak Island, east 25 knots. Small crafts also for the Pribilofs and St. Matthew Island, where the winds will be southeast with 7-foot seas. And up along the Beaufort Sea on the east side here, east-southeast, 10 knots, more of a southerly direction on the central coast. And then roughly, I'd say from about Point Lay on down toward Cape Lisburne, southwest 20, small craft advisories, Cape Lisburne down to the Wales area, south-southwest at 25 knots. And then the outlook for Tuesday, small craft advisories here from Wales all the way up the west side, 25-knot winds with 5 to 6-foot seas, about 20 knots from the southwest on the central coast. Winds will stay light on the east side. Looking at tonight's forecast again, diminishing thunderstorms, still some gusty winds around Cape Lisburne, a chance of rain here along the northwest coast, but light amounts, high pressure controlling the Barents Sea in the interior. And nice day in the Panhandle. Isolated thunderstorms here, more off to the east than they were today, so a lot drier here over the interior and warmer. And that sunny, warm pattern of 60s, 70s, and lower 80s here holds right through Tuesday. Chance of rain up along the Arctic coast there as those disturbances pass by from west to east, and rain pushes into the Alaska Peninsula. That's a look at Alaska weather. Thanks for joining us.
These forecasts are for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating.